Ready?
Hey everybody, what's up? It's Tipping the Scales. Man, we are live. I'm Shay, LaShayla Dawson.
I was going to say you're not LaShayla today.
I can switch it up, thanks.
Yes, you can.
Mind your
You
business,
can.
thanks. Mind your business.
Okay. I can't mind my own business. Never did. It's not my thing. And I'm Tania, also known as T. So welcome, tippers, and welcome, gentlemen. Excited to have you here. So our first two guys that were on, shout out to TJ and Josh. You guys were amazing and appreciate your vulnerability. And so they had rings on their fingers. You guys are you?
Hold, let me stop. That's how we started. That's how we're gonna do this. Is that why y'all paired us together?
I don't know, T.
What's the question?
Is that why you paired them together because they're both single?
Oh, no. We wanted to put the parents
Or we don't know if they're
together.
single, actually. We have to ask.
I don't know. But that's the first thing that I noticed. There's no rings. So does that mean so it's safe to assume that you guys aren't married?
I'm married to the Lord.
Oh, amen. Amen. So married to the
no
Lord.
comment.
Okay.
Well, you're never alone when you're with Christ.
The Lord is with us tonight. Well, before we jump in our questions, let's start off a little bit by telling the tippers who you are and anything you want to share, whether it be a fun fact or what you do for a living. I hate to do that because people are like, what do you do for a living? But talk a little bit about just who you are and what do you want to share before we dig in and step on your souls. No, I'm just kidding. We're just going to have fun.
Well, I guess I'll start. Marcus Harden. I am originally from Seattle, Washington, the West Coast, the best coast. I won't say what I do for a living. I'll say what I do for a purpose.
He's a deep one, y'all.
I am a believer in people. So no matter who is paying my mortgage at the time, I'm a believer in people. Specifically, I spent my whole life working with young people, young Black men specifically. And so originally from Seattle, Washington, only child. My parents kissed once in the late 70s, and they had me. Former college athlete. I spent my whole life dedicated to education and nonprofit and just service. Like my life is not my own. I truly believe that. And so I'm just here, so glad. I am happily single. I am not a person who longs for that. If love finds me, then I will embrace it. And if it doesn't, I'm surrounded by people and things that love me, and I am a shallow reflection of the lives that are spit into mine. So I'm good. I'm a Sagittarius. I like short walks on the beaches. And I am here because Shay is my sister. It is past my bedtime. I'll be at home watching Golden Girl reruns and LeBron making that same shot over and over. But I'm so happy to be here and so thankful for the space y'all creating. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, this is a deep one. Okay. Told you. All right.
Well, similar to my brother here, man, I got a real passion for what I do and how I lead my life. And it's more so about just a day-to-day journey because, everybody chasing something. Everybody got a finish line that they're trying to get to. Yeah. But, it's a lot of the in-between that I get the most joy from and how I live my life. So I'm from Wisconsin, up north. Made my way down here, played a little college ball at Tennessee. Got a chance to get my bachelor's in psychology. And then, by the grace of God, I was able to go play professionally for 2 years.
That's awesome.
But then ended up getting my career derailed just due to injury and then had to figure it all out over again. So that ultimately led me back to, my passion, my purpose, working with, people on the spectrum, not only children, but families. It's a lot of family that's deal with mental health, and sometimes it's not the kid, it's the parents that have it. You know what I mean? And a lot of it is, when you're going through these things, you think you're going through it alone. And sometimes those burdens are very heavy, and it's better if you can stomach it, if you got more shoulders to carry the load. So essentially, what I try to do, very collaborative in nature, very collaborative in my approach. And, similar to what Josh was saying, I think, the heavy lifting is easy when you got people of like-minded, similar to like everybody on this stage, got a purpose for just sitting up here having a conversation, because that's where the most power is had. Although y'all listening right now, eventually y'all gonna get to the point where y'all in these same kind of seats, may not be with lights and everything, but it's still the same topic. You know what I mean? Just to be able to have those deep conversations, because ultimately that deepens relationships. And that's what I come to find out, just over my journey of life. And I ended up meeting Shay through her soon-to-be husband, Dr. Ricks, at the University of Missouri.
Dr. Ricks, I love how that sounds.
I do too.
I love how that sounds.
To our brother Nafis.
Speak that thing into fruition, okay?
Yeah, most certainly. And I'm very big on just, like I said, when I come in contact with genuine individuals, whether it be any kind of relationships, they're difficult, they're hard, you know what I mean? And sometimes adults really fail to realize that concept when it comes to just, going that extra mile or dropping that pride and making that phone call and saying I'm sorry, or saying I may not understand or I may not have understood, but I get why your feelings were what they were and they're valid. You know what I mean? And a lot of that is just, trying to step out your own way. And so through the course of my life, playing overseas, living in Israel, living in Japan, a lot of things that showed me things are going to shock you. Culture shock is real, but that's not when you just go out to another country. It's more so when you go to a new neighborhood, when you see a new face, when you go to a new workplace. Right. This culture shock is still all the same. You know what I mean? Just figuring out how you're going to maneuver through it. And a lot of it is just having an understanding of where you are and being able to respect yourself and your environment. So sorry that was long-winded.
No, it's great. It's good. Yeah.
All right. Well, we got you up here to kind of just, both of you are very brave in your approach and how you approach life. As I watch you, I can't even say grow, just like take on the day. Like I watched you, I spent the pandemic with Jeronne. We got shut down in the pandemic, me, Nafis, and him. Three Stooges.
Your best work was during the pandemic.
It was.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Because, I definitely was empowering her, just to kind of take heed to who she is. Yeah. And a lot of it is just like, sometimes you can't see your own blind spots. And, when it comes to stepping out on faith or doing something that's not necessarily in your lane, but what is a lane? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, if I got wheels, I'm there, know? So the pandemic was a unique time.
It was.
I'm glad I got to spend it with them too. Honestly, I wouldn't change it.
It was so great. It was so great. But that's also too where I learned a lot about myself, but I learned a lot about men and how they live, right? And living with two guys. Just more of just like your daily routines, right? So speaking about daily routines, Marcus, how do you wake up in the morning? How do you go out in the day and conquer the day as a man, as a Black man, as an educator, as a human who loves people? What are the things that you do to get yourself ready for the day, knowing what you have to deal with out there?
It's funny, I was just having this conversation. So I'm an only child. So I've had to spend a lot of time self-entertaining and self-soothing. So my morning routine is actually pretty simple. I roll out of bed, say my prayer, kind of set a focus for the day. My life has just always been as a person who has taking on the burdens of other people. So I've been working literally since I was 12 years old. I've been collecting a check since I was 12. I've had great parents. My mom was a single mother for the most part. My dad was in and out of jail early. This is live, ain't it? My dad was in and out of jail early. And some of the classic stuff. And so I've had to adult. I'm probably more of a kid now than I ever was as a child because I've had to adult young. And so a lot of my routine is just centering because a lot of my life has been to help other people. And it's not a burden to me, it's the blessing, but it's also the thing I have to prepare myself in the day to take on the emotional weight or the thoughtful weight of other people. And so I usually pray and I say, God, what is your will for me today? Prepare me for what this day is. I'm recently delivered from the fat spirit. And so I usually go to the gym. Not fully, I'm in the husky spirit now, but working out has become part of my ritual and my own self-care. Yeah. Awesome. I have love tattooed on my arm. But as Josh was saying and TJ was saying, it took me so long to love myself. I spent so long loving other people as my paramount value that until moving to Atlanta, honestly, so 4 or 5 years ago, that I spent the time to really love myself and put me first, not in the selfish way, but in the selfless way, to be able to give back to others. So I prepare myself in the day. And then, I put on some 90s hip hop, or I put a little Too Short Below the Whistle, or a little John Mayer Gravity. And we hit the day. I'm eclectic. I'm from Seattle. I got a little everything in me. And just get ready. And I really say, God, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? Kind of the same mantra every day. And tackle it. But I really feel like my life is to be filled with purpose. So the work that we get to do every day, it is not cliche. I am not there for the lights. I don't care about any of the other stuff. I tell the young people I work with, I just want you to be great men because that'll outlast any of your other talents. And that's how I prepare and take the day as it may. And as you know, the day comes.
Yes. And you do it with a smile, no matter what it brings.
Listen, you put that Chick-fil-A smile on and you say, my pleasure. And you keep it moving.
You definitely do that.
That's how I handle that.
Beautiful. And Jeronne?
Reiterate the question for me.
So basically, how do you prepare for the day knowing that the world is not a forgiving place? It's dangerous out there, right? There are not a lot of safe spaces for men. There are not a lot of safe spaces for Black men. How do you wake up in the morning and prepare yourself each day, even when you're going through stuff? Like, what do you do? What's your routine? What is that like?
That's a unique question because a lot of what life is, the good and the bad is that it don't stop. You know what I mean? Tuesday coming, Wednesday coming.
Yeah.
I don't care how you slice it, what you feeling like, what just happened to you today, Thursday coming. And it's one of those things you got to do it with confidence, you know what I mean? And courage. And obviously a lot of other components that go into that, but it's like, it's an intentional factor that got to be behind a lot of what you do when you get
setting
out the
your
bed.
intention.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, especially looking like the way we look, you're going to run into things more often than none that's not going to be in your favor, and if you don't understand that, you're going to forever get punched in the mouth in a lot of ways. And it's just like, for me, just making sure I'm locked in, I'm present, because a lot of times people, what we do on a day-to-day basis is I guarantee you is like 90% habit. You know what I mean? So unconscious.
Yeah.
Just doing it. Like sometimes you get off work, you dead tired, you make it home. You're like, I don't even know who's driving that car. You know what I mean? But I'm here. Right. I'm in my driveway, you know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be. And it's one of those things while you on autopilot, you can get hurt. You know what I mean? Because you think a lot of things in life just supposed to be it's supposed to just be a normal day.
Right.
But history is created every day. You know what I mean? We sitting here, was this the first live audience? This is history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so just being a part of history every day and knowing that you're going to make history every day, do it with intention. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing that I try to emphasize just with myself, because at the end of the day, you can get so caught up in trying to be the hero in somebody else's story when your story's still writing itself. You know what I mean? And if you're neglecting yourself, what's your script look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You provide all the value for somebody else, but you haven't done the work on your own self. And I think when it comes to just like having good people around you, and being able to say, okay, give me insight on this or critique me on this. Make sure you ask enough qualifying questions to give criticism. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times we do it off on surface level and it seems like it makes sense in the moment, but then when we go reflect on it, you be like, damn, I didn't give her all I could have because I kind of shorted on because I'm thinking about myself in the aspect that I wanted to be in. You know what I mean? Especially when your friend telling you about they got good things going on in their life and you more so like, all right, but back to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted that people make note of those things, you know what I mean? Because it's like, although, you got stuff going on, like we all juggling something that has to be prioritized. And a lot of times we don't prioritize until it's too late, So just trying to be present, you know what I mean? Really just focusing on being intentional with my actions, not only for myself, but for other people.
Love that. So, I wonder if you guys have some of the same pressures we do as women. Like, Brandon, you have tattooed on your arm. And for most part, when we bring on our guests, we talk about love because it's real and it's special when you find it. But before we deep dive into love, I'm just curious, because I know for me, I'll be 46 this year, and the question is like, oh my gosh, you're not married. Like, when are you going to get married? Do you feel as men that you have those same pressures that, do you have pressures to get married or have children if you don't have children? Like, what type of pressures do you get around love, marriage? Who wants to go first?
We're talking. I realized about Shay had me on the show. So my life is interesting. So I am a father of 6.
Ooh, caveat.
You see, I had a pause. The whole audience was like, this old thought. No, I'm a father.
I can tell you a father of 6. You sprinkle little gems.
Yeah. So at 26, I decided to enter into the foster adoptive system. And so I adopted 4 sons who were 12, 11, and 10. And my commitment to them as young Black men was to raise them all the way through. And so I raised them. So my oldest is 30, my youngest is 21. And so during that time, I felt a lot of pressure to like do that. Cause I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like I look like Michael Jackson's Funhouse, like, like all these different things. So the pressure was heavier then. And I was just actually having this conversation, I want to say with Josh or maybe Damien behind there. But I think coming back to like, the way I was taught love was as purely as service and not as love to self. And so I had an incredible grandmother. I have a great mother. Even as I've grown as a man to understand my father's love, which I've taken on a lot of. So my father loved differently than I do. So I'm very wordsy. I'm very like, even to my students now, I'm like, man, I love you. I'm that guy.
Not afraid to use the word.
I'm not afraid to use it, but I think I've become the thing I wanted.
Okay.
My dad loved through provision and protection. I'm also that. Right? Like, it's also good that this thing is facing the door, right? Because I was a bouncer and I was like, we got kicked out of here earlier. And I was like, I get it. Now you got a job. You know what I'm saying? And so like, but at my baseline, I'm a protector and provider. I'm gonna make sure we got a house. I'm gonna make sure you feel safe.
Yep.
I've had to grow into I love you in the uncomfortable spaces, even with my friends. So to answer your question, at the time I was like, there's no partner who wants to enter into this, this man who has 4 teenagers, who eating a whole bunch of Capri Suns and hot noodle cups, and the house smelled like God knows what. You know what I'm saying? Like, even at our best. And so I would say now I'm in a space that I'm open for love, however that comes to me. But I'm also, if I'm honest, I lived my life for a lot of other people for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm also in a very selfish place in my life as I'm doing the things that I choose to do. And if that is God's will to find me, then cool, but I'm also an only child. So I'm also not afraid to be alone. Like I said, I'd be at the house chilling, mismatched socks on. These two don't match. Just 2 different black socks. The same
They're just
height.
black. So it's all
black. I was rushing, Shay. I had to take a shower. But, it's just getting there. And so, but I'm okay with that, right? I think as men especially, I watched this wonderful clip from Winston Duke, who brought Husky men back. But he was talking about how we are often, how as larger black men, we are actually oftentimes reducted to just sports or to being sexualized.
Yes.
Right. And so for so long, that is all I even saw myself as the big friend, or as if you was into over 300-pound people at the time, the big protective person. Right. And so you are reduced to that, and you play that role. If that feeds you, it is fed. And so like for so long I was fed into it. And now that I'm free-ish, good therapy twice a month and like good people around me, you come to understand that again, like it's an inside job. And I won't be able to be good to any partner unless I'm good to myself. And like I said, for the first time, I'm like truly loving myself, and I'm kind of enjoying this season. And so we're going to find out where this leads. And if it leads to walking down the aisle and Too Short Blow the Whistle playing, then so be it.
He said that twice, by the way.
That's the
second time he said that. So
that's my wedding song and my funeral song, by the way. But that's how I'm gonna go in and out. But like, no, that's just how I want it to be. But it's gonna be on my rules. And if you're gonna love me, it's the same way even with our job. Like I was like, you're gonna take me for me, or she's just not gonna take me. And that's taken me a long time to get there. But I'm here and I'm loving it.
I love that you said self-care, because sometimes, a lot of times, I know as women, we're just known for being nurturers, and we always love others over loving ourselves. And that can be hard. But I think just as individuals, just as humans, no matter who you are, that you have to start with loving yourself. Because I got caught up too, I tell the story with Shay is when my son went to college, I'm just so used to doing everything, and because he was playing ball his whole life, and it's like part of my whole experience, packing lunch, getting ready to drive to North Carolina for AAU tournament and things like that. When he went to college, I felt like I lost myself. Like I didn't know what it was that made me happy. If you ask me, it was a real profound moment when I was asked by a friend, like, what do you love to do? And I said, I honestly don't know, because all I knew was how to be a mom. Mm-hmm. So now that I have come like full circle in life, I realize that, yes, I want to be the best mom that I can be, but I can't be a great mom without being a good person to Tania. Yeah. So I'm glad that you said that, and it sounds like you're rooted in that, which is great. Okay, you're not out the house. You're not out the hot seat. How would you answer that?
I would say there's no real pressure on me, per se. my mom and my dad, they've been together for about 25 years. I got a couple brothers, couple sisters, and they all got kids. I'm the only one. I'm the middle child, only one without children. And it's one of those things where I feel like I'm in a really great spot, especially how my life has progressed. And when I speak, I only try to speak from my perspective because that's the only one I can really give you. But I got a lot of experiences from different walks of life and from different spaces, and the good part about life is just trying to get as many experiences as possible so you can be able to, pour back into your community, pour back into your children and say, you ain't got to go through X, Y, and Z because I did, or here's how I did X, Y, and Z. So it should be easier for you to do X, Y, and Z. And when it comes to just like dating, I'm very,
This is live.
That's what I'm trying to make sure I pick my words.
To share. Stay in your own lane.
I'm trying to make sure I pick my words wisely because I do want to make sure I'm purposeful when I say some of these things because it's power in being patient when it comes to women. You know what I mean? Like I didn't been in a lot of situations where it could have been totally different as far as like what my life looked like, as far as like how many children I have by different women, because it's been situations where I've been careless and irresponsible intentionally. You know what I mean? And it's like whatever happens, happens. And we all had those mindsets when it comes to certain things, whether if the day been hell and then you go, if I gotta go through one more thing, it's up. You know what I mean? It's like you wanna kind of just sweep your whole life under the rug or make one bad decision and derail everything you got going on just for one situation that you can't really just think past it. You know what I mean? And if you realize, regardless of what, however bad it is, you've made it through 100% of those situations. And so when I look at relationships, I often see like I done came across a lot of amazing women. You know what I mean? Like, boy, if I had to, a lot of amazing women, and it's just like, yeah, you can look at it as, people say you fumbled a great woman or you fumbled a great man. That's not necessarily true. I'm more so, in that failure, I found things about myself that I also either needed to work on or needed to enhance to be a better partner. You know what I mean? So as sad as it sounds, each woman, each man that you kind of go through builds you for the next one, believe it or not. And if you can take heed to what's happening to you and not react to it, more so respond to it, you know what I mean? It'll give you a more sustainable chance at success. You know what I mean? And so I'm looking forward to whatever woman I come into contact with next that's in alignment with the things that I deem valuable. You know what I mean? And I'm in a very exciting season.
I have to ask this for the ladies because I would be remorse if I didn't, because for me being a single woman, I get tired as hell hearing like, oh, we're amazing women. Like, if you come across an amazing woman, why don't you get your shit together and be what she needs you to be? Opposed to, I met some amazing women. Like, okay, like, why don't you take heed to that opposed to letting one slip away and just being built up for the next one? I'm sorry, I want to blow my own personal stuff.
No, that's perfect because I actually like those kind of questions because then it comes down to a collaborative approach because it's not more so one-sided where you can project and say, how come this? It's more so, how come us? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if I have a perspective on something and you have one, we got to find a common ground in order for us to move forward anyways. And a lot of what I've experienced with women is they're willing to give something to men, but even though the man's not willing to give something back, they're still willing to stay. And that says a lot about how this is going to progress into the lack of accountability that you're going to show me later in life when the stakes are even higher. And so some of these things you may think as minute when it comes to, we just going through the motions, or we up again, we toxic, whatever it may be. But I read a little deeper into those kind of things. Regardless, like you may think it's just, I'm being, I'm not changing or I'm not doing things that you're asking me to do in a timely fashion. But at the end of the day, I may be, trying to, get my gear in motion, but I'm not there yet. But your lack of accountability for me is telling me it's okay. You know what I mean? And so regardless, I know women, I stick around because I see the potential. Everybody got potential. You know what I mean? Literally everybody, no matter what, it's just, it's how you looking at it. And I think if you can't, not give an ultimatum, but really be stern in your approach. The same thing with a child. If you put him on punishment and the next day he get his same toy back, he gonna get stronger. But for you, for your lack thereof, you know what I mean? That's what happens in relationships. Same thing.
Okay.
Go right off that because I saw you just do. Go ahead.
Praise God, first of all.
That was really good, Jeronne.
I mean, that's tough to follow. I'll say,
some gems.
I think in agreement, everything he said, and I think for me, so like I was surrounded by strong Black women. I was raised by strong Black women. So I think for me, when I look for anything in a partner, and I think, so there's two things I always say to folks to answer your question directly. One, as an only child, you learn to be self-sufficient. And so it's taken a long time for me to actually open my heart to be like, do I actually even need somebody else?
Okay.
One. And then there's the Freudian complex of like, are you my mother? Right? Like I watched my mom, and I feel bad always telling this story because I love the relationship I have with my father now, and I actually understand him as a man much differently than I did as a child. But if I'm speaking as a child, I saw my mom doing exactly what you're saying, like, you know, working 3 jobs, taking care of my dad when he was in and out of jail, when he was on drugs. Like, and I was just like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And like, she just did it because that's how she knew. And I watched my grandmother do that. And I watched my aunt do that. And I watched my cousin do that and all those things. And so when it came to me, I was like, I don't know if I want that. And I tell people now, like what I've tended to experience in relationships is people, because I'm very playful, people tend to think that like I want a mother, but I'm like, my mother wasn't even that. Like I want a partner. I want you to do this life thing with me because I'm self-sufficient. I'm my own best friend. Like people are surprised when they get into relationships with me because I'm gregarious and charismatic. But when I go home, I'm chill. Like, you know, it's low lights. Don't say a whole bunch. Like put on that same old sitcom. Let's watch Martin. You know, like I'm very low key. People are shocked at that because my public persona is very large, and that's what I've been taught to be. But in my intimate space, I love these things. This isn't really intimate. There's a 4K light. My whole left side is sweating. But you know, like it feels. This conversation could be on the couch. You know, it's good. This conversation could be on the couch. So I think it's just all things are relative. But to your point, I've had to grow up too. There's definitely been some people that I have hurt, right, through my emotional unavailability or from my ability to connect. Some feedback I've gotten from former people I've dated has been like, because I'm so public and because I give so much in this space, they've been like, we don't feel like you give us any different love than you give your clients or your students or your whatever. And so I've had to take that and be like, man, you're right. Because I put work in service before anybody else for a long time. So I put, as a teacher, as an educator, I put work first. I was like, if you can't get with this, then you can't get with this. Like, you know, you better be available when I be available, be at the Cheesecake Factory right before it closes. Like, we gonna get that slice and that pasta. And I've had to learn I have to be better, right? But again, part of that came from just not valuing me. I didn't see me enough to be loved, right? And so like some of that just comes back to the same work. And it's unfortunate that you have to go through people. I've always tried to mend and hold on to those relationships. But yeah, I've had great people that I'm glad have gone on to better things, I feel like. And we just talked about this before coming on the stage. We were staging this because I was like, we all can't be on black. He got to be in red. He got to be close to you.
I like the pop of color.
Yeah, no, we had to. I was like, it looks like Christmas in February. But you got to be good to people, right? And I what I never wanted to be was the person who were like, I can't love because I dated Marcus. I never wanted that. I was always a clear communicator. And I think I've done that. I might have one person who hates my guts. Outside of that, I think I'm good.
I think we all been there.
We got one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, we're getting closer to the end, and again, appreciate your vulnerability. And for me, I just want to know, where do you get your sense of self? How do you find that? As I know a lot of, you know, we work with a lot of young people, particularly athletes, and we know that sometimes their self-image comes cookie cutter. You know, they get their judgment, they get their not the judgment, they get their sense of self by looking at someone else and saying, well, that person's cool and that person's cool. And sometimes it's not people, they look up to people that sometimes we don't want them to become. Like how do young men, or how did you guys find your sense of self as you took your journey? Like, you know, how do you know if you want to be the strong, presenting, loud person, or how do you know if you want to be a reserved person? You know, even in my family, my brothers are very quiet. They like to observe first. So people always are like, are they okay when they go into a room? But they're just not very trusting with their words because they don't know who's going to use it against them. And so just wondering how you guys see that. And I know that's a long-winded way of but how do you see your sense of self, I guess? Where do you get it from?
That's a really good question, because I think a lot of times with boys more so than anything, we got a lot of insecurities that we either take heed to or we bury. You know what I mean? And, it gets to a certain point where if you've been burying things for so long, you don't even know where to dig it up. You know what I mean? Yes. And so you're gonna continue to repeat the story that you tell yourself. And a lot of how I kind of came to be who I am today is multifaceted, but it's basically predicated on good mentorship. You know, I try to surround myself with men that do the things that I aspire to do. You know what I mean? It's not granted, it's a lot of people out there imprinting on you every day. You know what I mean? And it's like, sometimes you don't even know it, you know, because everything is more, like I said, automated right now. You might be on autopilot. You might just be on Facebook. You ain't even really watch it. You just scrolling. Something gonna catch your eye. You know what it is. But right now, you really just going through the motions. You know what I mean? And a lot of that is, you know, it gets to a point where you don't even know how to separate your reality from what you think is real versus what you actually live. And a lot of what I do, and I have a lot of positive self-talk. You know what I mean? It's important to be intentional with what I'm telling myself as soon as I get out of bed. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I even play music on the wake up. You know what I mean? Because I try to get 5
your mindset.
Yeah, you know what I mean? 5:30. Hell, I don't even want to have a conversation in the morning, but if I got this vibe in the back, my shoulder's gonna eventually get loose, you know. So at some point, I take it one moment at a time, because all this stuff is fleeting. You know, one of the fascinating things about life is just like we deal with emotions every day, but nobody teach you how to handle them. You got to go pay somebody once you get to an adult age to kind of say that's okay to deal with certain emotions, or your trauma is okay to say, you know, X, Y, and Z. Because a lot of men go through things that's like, I can't tell society that I went through X, Y, and Z, because they gon' position me as this, or they gonna look at me like that. And if I'm like, think about life though. You build or spend every moment building character, building a reputation. And then one thing you do, one thing you say, one picture, one video, one action at your kid's school, one action, you know, out drinking, you know, with somebody else that ain't your spouse, and you done just disrupted your whole timeline of what you had going on. And that's crazy. That's heavy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like credit. You know, you work your way up, you know, there's hell working out. But one little thing, it's like, damn, you knocked me 200 points, 100 points.
Just for that one crazy. Time?
Yeah, but it's just like, you know, and so just understanding, like, the biggest thing you could do is get an understanding. You know what I mean? And that's saying a lot, but it's like, whatever that means to you, you got to get an understanding. You know, so.
And thank you for just being honest enough to say that there are insecurities, because sometimes we don't want to admit that we have insecurities, or sometimes people play on to that, like, oh, you're insecure, and make it a very negative thing.
Let me say this. And so it's something so common, I guess. It's something that I realized when you know, in America, I guess it's an American thing. But you give somebody a comment, the first thing they do, they're gonna deflect it. Girl, you looking good today. Oh, them some nice shoes. Oh man, these old, man. I need a haircut. Oh yeah. I just gave you something to make you feel good about yourself, regardless if it was genuine or not. I just said it. You know what I mean? The first thing we're gonna do, oh no, but you. We're gonna go right to the next person. Take that love, because at the end of the day, it's only so much you're gonna get at the end of the day, because life meant to beat your ass. It ain't meant to love on you. You know what I mean? The people that you got in your circle are supposed to love on you. You know what I mean? Think about how all sports are formulated. They got half times, they got timeouts, they got breaks, right? Those breaks. So while you playing, you getting beat on, right? You're gonna call a timeout. Come back over and let me show you some love, right? You got this. You good. You know, go back in there, get beat up. You know what I mean? So it's all the same. It's the same thing in life. You go outside, go out your door, get beat up. Come back home, babe, it was tough out there. I lost my job. It's all good. We're gonna make it. We're gonna figure it out. You know what I mean? And you're going right back at it. So it's like you gotta be able to have enough in you to keep going after you didn't got beat up. Got your ass basically. You know what I mean? So that's how you formulate who you're gonna become. Because at the end of the day, anytime you go through any fight or flight experience, it's more than something that's just, you know, that can kind of take you out of life. But I'm saying it's more so like when I gotta give a speech in front of my execs in the morning, or I gotta go in there, I gotta read in front of my kids' class. Something so simple as that. You'll be surprised on how many people get anxiety about reading out loud. You know what I mean? And it's something so small, but it's like, it's so big in the grand scheme of things because that's something that's gonna perpetuate to her kids or that person's kids or that person's family. You know what I mean? Because it's all the same. You know, tradition is a big thing that we, especially people that look like us, that we suffer with. You know, we can't get away from our family tradition because it's like, my auntie did it, my uncle did it, this is what they do, so I gotta do it. Your environment necessarily don't dictate what's not. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. But that's where sense of self comes from. You know what I mean? The traditions and what you've been subjected to, and then ultimately I get to a certain age where it's hard to pull away from. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I'm just getting to understand you getting imprinted on by everybody. You know what I mean? I'm learning a lot from y'all. You know what I mean? And even people that I just met today, it's like, you know, but it's intentional. Because you can walk past people that look like us. We walk past each other all the time, but we'd be willing to speak so quickly with somebody else about something, you know what I mean, that we could just like, you know, if Shay would have walked past me and I wouldn't speak to her, I would feel a way. Yeah, I don't have to know her or not. It's just more so, you know, she looks like me, and a lot of times we go unnoticed. You know what I mean? Like if you walk in the store, how many times you gotta sit there and wait for somebody to come talk to you? You know what I mean? It's like, I know you see me. You know what I mean? I'm standing right here patient. Do I gotta put my hand up and be a little extra for you? You know what I mean? Because that's what they kind of want me to do. But more so than not, if I know myself, I don't have to get out of body for a situation that don't really mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we get out of our square because, you know, somebody looked at us wrong, stepped on our white shoes. You wore them to a party. What did you think was gonna happen? You know what I mean? It's just a lot of things that just go on that just I kind of scratch my head at. But yeah, sorry.
No, well, listen, I know just that was a lot, but I think it was necessary and people need to hear it. So thank you, Jeronne. Thank you, Brandon, for being on our podcast. Marcus.
I was like, where Brandon at?
Thank you, Marcus, for being on our podcast because these conversations are heavy and they're not easy. And it's the vulnerability that really gives you a sense of just encouraging someone else that may need to hear the words that you said today. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Thank you, tippers, for hanging in. It's been a long day. Thank you for being as part of our first live episode. Sitting in those chairs are not easy, so we appreciate you guys. And thank you for continuing. Please continue to follow Tipping the Scales wherever you get your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Jeronne. Appreciate it.